I will come in closer.
Okay.
On the next one. So, just so that we've got some different video.
Yeah. Sorry if I ramble. Sometimes I forget. Like when I know there's someone filming me, I forget what I'm saying. I'm just like, sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry.
I feel like such a goof.
I've got butterflies on my
Oh my gosh.
Can you give me an overview of your art practice today?
Yeah, I guess so. My practice is predominantly based around my own painting and drawing and the themes that I'm focusing on, and I kind of get to steer my own ship in that respect, which is really cool. And then more recently I've been teaming up with different people and doing some collaborations and things as well, so it's kind of like I'll work together with, say, another individual or potentially a brand and come up with a different outcome usually based on the kind of thing I'm working on already, but then you kind of have to tailor that to what the overall outcome needs to be. So I do my own thing, and then I do these other little projects. I'll do larger murals. It's kind of just like it's a bit of a crazy mashup of different things, but yeah, it's really fun. But at the end of the day, it generally all comes back down to the main focus of what I'm doing with my practice at the time, I suppose.
What are your thoughts on the difference between art and design?
Okay, I guess I'm not sure if this is the most educated viewpoint, but I've kind of always just thought that design needs to have that purpose to go, the function to go with the aesthetic, whereas art can just exist for its own sake. It can just be. That's kind of how I've always viewed it anyway. I'm not really sure if that's right.
What kind of collaborations have you been involved with?
So I've done a few different collaborations. I've worked with some fashion labels. I've worked with some homeware labels doing like soft furnishings and things. I've done surfboards and skateboards. A few different bits and pieces. I'm trying to think, but yeah, it's pretty varied.
Tell me about your collaboration with Cesar Cueva for Underwings, and tell me about the final artwork and the development of that project. Okay, cool. So
Underwings I've actually done a couple of collaborations with Cesar, and Underwings was a really fun one. Basically, that whole thing came about from one painting that was in my last solo exhibition, which was called Third Eye Western, and it was a painting of a feather with a big sort of gold patch on the tip, and I share a studio space with Cesar, or I should say he shares his studio space with me. But so he had kind of flagged with me that piece really resonated with him, and we sort of started chatting about it, and we wanted to work on something again together. So we put our heads together, and Cesar's really great at all of that sort of more object design, turning something into something else, and that's sort of more his realm. He's great with that side of things. So I sort of came up with this feather outline, and he digitized it, and we had it all laser cut out of stainless steel and hand finished all the edges, and then I hand painted all of the feathers. He also designed a little bracket device to attach to it so that they could be hung from different angles and things from the ceiling, and basically that body of work was installed at courtesy of the artist in the CBD for when they opened their new space in there, and they were also for sale. So yeah, that was really fun. It was cool.
Can you tell me about any favourite exhibitions you've been involved in?
Yeah, so I've done a few group shows that have been really fun, but I guess when I look back on it, I'd say that my favourite exhibition was probably my last solo show, and not necessarily because it was the most fun thing to do, but because it was actually really hard, but that's sort of why I liked it. I guess it was the one exhibition that I really threw myself into, and kind of I let it consume me for probably six or 7 or 8 months or something, and just I kind of really lived that body of work, if that makes sense. So in looking back, that was a big step for me as an artist, and a lot of those things that I was working on are still informing my work now. So it was kind of one of those. It was, I guess, pretty satisfying at the end of it, so that's why it was a favourite, I suppose.
If you could incorporate other art mediums into your practice, what would you incorporate?
So I've actually started dabbling with photography a little more recently, so I would actually like to delve a little bit more into that, so particularly film photography, but I'd also like to do a little bit more with fashion. Again, have dabbled a little bit, but would like to kind of mesh those two worlds. And then some things that I haven't really worked with so much since I was a kid, so I'd love to kind of get into ceramics, potentially do some more sculptural pieces, so that's something that I've kind of been thinking about a little bit.
Okay. Well, can you tell me a bit about your concept for your work, Salty Sailor Lover?
Yeah, sure. So that was a while ago now, that body of work. So they were all I think they were all pen on paper and maybe a little bit of acrylic on paper, drawings of mostly female forms and some male forms. It was sort of just this story, a bit of a narrative that I'd created in my mind, basically about this group of women that were kind of like abandoned lovers in these port towns kind of thing. So they're wearing these sailors' shirts, they're sort of left behind, they're a bit sort of lovelorn, but then they're also kind of strong. And it was just this funny little story. And then so there's some of the sailors in there. And then that was also the first time that I started playing with some traditional tattoo imagery, which is something that's still coming into my work. So a lot of them had the swallow tattoos, which is again sort of has its own background to sailors and things like that. So yeah, it was kind of a light-hearted, little show.
Can you tell me a bit about Lauren and the Lost Boys?
Sure. So the name Lauren and the Lost Boys is kind of a pseudonym that I've been working under for a number of years now, because I have always sort of done my drawing and painting, but other little bits and pieces as well. I wanted to have a little bit of an umbrella, I suppose, for things to fall underneath. So it was kind of always the name for that. And then, at one point I was doing a little bit of a blog to go with it. So that was the name of that. And then it's just kind of become this little, I guess, moniker for my art. So yeah, and I kind of like it. It makes me feel like, I don't know, I've got a band or something. I like it. Okay, current art projects. So I've got a couple of interior spaces that I've got to do. I'm working with a streetwear label on doing a collaborative, we're actually doing a bomber jacket, so that'll be kind of fun. I'm working with McTavish, the surfboard company, a little bit more. We've got some stuff coming up, and I'm doing another custom board for them in the next week or so. Still doing some stuff with the skateboard guys. Just some of my own projects, so some of my own artwork for other bits and pieces.
What do you find most challenging about being an Australian female artist?
So with that one, I guess I would say there are challenges to being an artist regardless. I've never really been in many situations myself where I've felt like I have faced challenge specifically as a female that I wouldn't have if I was a male. There are a couple of times where I maybe received funny comments for work that I've exhibited. This was years and years ago. I exhibited some photographs actually, and there were some comments that I did wonder if I would have received if I were a male. But look,
do you see a difference in the work of female artists today because you were the rise of the feminist movement in the 20th century?
That's right. Yeah, I guess there is definitely. I think one of the main differences post the rise of the feminist movement is just our freedom and ability to kind of express ourselves the way we'd like to without thinking. So I guess if I think about my own practice, I don't ever really sit down and consider if this is a topic I should be discussing, if I'm allowed to kind of delve into that realm. Can I do this? Is this crossing a line? That doesn't even factor into my thinking. So that in itself, I think, is pretty cool. That's the way it should be, but that we can all just make our art freely. I guess that's a pretty cool change. Yeah. So I don't directly reference feminism, but there are definitely there are elements of female identity that come through quite strongly. I don't know if it necessarily reads that way for everyone, but for me, a lot of the work is quite self-reflective, so elements of that are naturally going to come through. I like to represent kind of a strong female voice and a strong female identity through what I'm doing. So sometimes I think it's an abstract way of saying it, and it doesn't need to be read that way, but it's underneath. But Okay, so that one there is an image of the Underwings installation, which was the collaboration I spoke about with Caesar Quaver. That's a bit of a detail of the feathers there. So basically, those ones, as I mentioned, they're sculptural pieces which we worked on together, and I then hand painted individually, and we installed together in their space, courtesy of the artist in the Strand Arcade. So that's what those ones were. And then this one here, what have we got? So these ones, again, these were illustrations on paper from an exhibition that I also did. This was in collaboration with courtesy of the artist again. So I did these independently, and then I did a residency at courtesy of the artist and exhibited in the space. And during that time, the works that I was doing, so there was also, these kind of come into play as well, the shirts, and there were a lot of skulls. So during the time that I was doing the residency there, we were working towards the Salty Sailor Lover exhibition, which had collaborative work with 3 of the artists there, the jewellery artists. So this is one of Caesar Quaver's rings, which he did, and the guys kind of worked in reaction to what I was painting and drawing. I think I'm starting to get better at it. It's
what?
I don't know, it's just like, you never know how long
You could probably do a collaboration with Gorman.
Oh really? I'd love to do that. They do such cool things, don't they?
They do.